Hello and welcome to today's announcement and press conference with Ministers Fortier and Guilbeault. Bonjour et bienvenue à l'annonce et la conférence de presse avec les ministres Guilbeault et Fortier. Won't keep you waiting much longer. Nous sommes prêts à commencer. Madame la ministre Fortier, à vous la parole.
Bonjour tout le monde. Good morning. There is no energy in this room. Bonjour tout le monde. We're at GLOBExCHANGE. Good morning. Well, thank you, Angela, for the introduction. Je suis vraiment heureuse de me joindre à vous aujourd'hui. Et évidemment, avant de commencer, j'aimerais souligner que nous sommes réunis sur le territoire traditionnel des Wendat, des Anishinabeg, des Haudenosaunee, des Métis et de la Première Nation des Mississauga de Crédit. Et je dois vous dire, c'est un très grand plaisir pour moi d'être ici aujourd'hui dans la région métropolitaine de Toronto. Et je suis également très heureuse d'être accompagnée de mon collègue et ami, Stephen Guilbeault, le ministre de l'Environnement et du Changement climatique. Vous savez, son dévouement, ses actions et sa passion pour cette cause sont vraiment une source d'inspiration et je suis très fière de pouvoir collaborer et travailler à ses côtés. Even as a young activist, Minister Guilbeault has always been a climate action champion. And as you probably know, I serve as the president of the Treasury Board of Canada, but that only tells half the story. Part of my mandate also includes leading the transition of our government operations to be net zero, green, and resilient. And this is what the greening government strategy is all about. It is directing and coordinating actions that will reduce federal emissions and make government operations more climate friendly. The Government of Canada is the country's largest real property owner. You knew that. We have 20,000 infrastructure assets, such as bridges, 30,000 buildings, and more than 40,000 vehicles. And our government is also the biggest public buyer in the country with over $20 billion worth of goods and services purchased every year. To put it simply, our government has a responsibility and a unique opportunity to lead by example in greening all of our operations. And as minister responsible for the greening government strategy, I'm fully committed to doing so. And I feel very hopeful with the work we have accomplished so far. And we know that by working together, the Government of Canada can be a world leader in the fight against climate change. Now, an important component in all of this is green procurement. In my mandate letter, I am tasked with the strengthening of federal procurement policies. That not only means seeking best value for money, but also making sure that we are looking at other variables in the procurement process, most notably environmental factors. And all organizations, including the federal government, need to green their procurement in line with our ambitious climate goals. And we cannot fight this fight alone. We need to work collaboratively to save our planet. Championing sustainable procurement strategies will help decrease. Yes, I said decrease our environmental footprint while creating market opportunities for Canadian-owned companies producing green goods. Now, we have made real progress, but we know there's a lot more to do. And I'm thrilled to announce the new standard on the disclosure of greenhouse gas emissions and the setting of reduction targets, which will help further strengthen green procurement in the Government of Canada. Now, this new standard will take effect on April 1st of this year, and its goal is to incentivize major suppliers to disclose their greenhouse gas emissions and set reduction targets for their organizations that are in line with the Paris Agreement. It will require that all federal procurements over $25 million include an incentive or requirement for suppliers to measure and disclose their greenhouse gas emissions and set science-based reduction targets. This means any federal government supplier will be able to fulfill this requirement through Canada's Net Zero Challenge, or another internationally recognized equivalent standard. And you'll hear more about this from Minister Guilbeault. Now, the goal is to move industries that supply to the federal government towards net zero carbon. And I would also like to announce another new standard for our government, the standard on embodied carbon in construction. Now, this applies to new construction and renovation projects over $10 million. And under this standard, businesses are required to disclose the embodied carbon footprint of already mixed concrete supplied to the project and reduce it by 10% compared to the regional average baseline. En établissant ces exigences, le gouvernement du Canada réduira l'empreinte carbone de ces projets tout en signalant le besoin de matériaux à faible émission de carbone. Et comme vous le savez, les changements climatiques sont l'un des plus grands défis mondiaux de notre époque et on ne peut pas l'ignorer. Le gouvernement du Canada fait ce qu'il doit pour écologiser ses activités. C'est pourquoi je ne pourrais être plus ravie de participer à cette importante conférence ici, aujourd'hui et demain. Nous avons tant à apprendre des expériences, des réussites et surtout des défis de chacun. Et j'ai hâte de connaître les efforts collectifs déployés pour relever nos défis climatiques et rendre nos organisations et notre pays plus verts. Alors, je vous remercie beaucoup. Thank you very much. Miigwech.
Bonjour, good morning. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup, Mona. En fait, merci pour tes bons mots, puis merci surtout pour être un allié indéfectible sur la question de la lutte au changement climatique. Every time I go to cabinet with many of my difficult files, I know Mona will have my back, which is something very precious for me. It is great to be with you all here today, and Minister Fortier for this important announcement. One that exemplifies the commitment we're making as the Government of Canada to a clean future. Je sais que la ministre Fortier est une alliée solide, comme je le disais, dans l'action climatique et qu'elle s'est engagée à créer une politique réfléchie pour résoudre ces problèmes, comme son annonce vient de le démontrer. Just looking around here at Globe, I think all of us here signify a collective reality, that climate change has transformed the way we live, that climate action is at once urgent and an enormous economic opportunity. That's what we've been driving at, that the environment and the economy go hand in hand. Canadians know this. A recent poll shows that 75% of Canadians agree that climate change is a threat that requires urgent action. And more than half are concerned about the impact of climate change on the economy. Rising energy costs are front of mind for many Canadians, and our way forward is to shift to a cleaner, more sustainable future. And as the government, we have been leading and supporting that shift towards a future that has clean air, clean electricity, a healthy, thriving natural world. Our goal of net zero by 2050 is the foundation for the future we are building, and it's a target that is gaining momentum all the world over. It's why we introduce carbon pricing. It's why we table net zero legislation. It's why our goal to transition to 100% of new cars in Canada to be zero emission by 2035. As a government, we want to provide clear, long-term signals as frame for investment decisions that align with Canada's climate objectives. What we do now can help shape long-term market decisions that will last for generations. In March of last year, we released Canada's first ever 2030 emissions reduction plan, setting out how we will reach emissions target. It was at another Globe conference, but this time in Vancouver. The plan is a sector-by-sector roadmap to cut emissions by at least 40% below 2005 levels by 2030 and puts us on track to net zero by 2050. It lays out how the Government of Canada will supply industry sectors, communities, and individuals to reach our goal together, leaving no one behind. And on the heels of this new plan, we launch Canada's own Net Zero Challenge. The challenge is voluntary and encourages businesses to develop and implement credible, effective plans that will see their facilities and operations reach net zero emission by 2050. The challenge allows companies to gain national recognition for their commitment and a framework of technical guidance and best practices. By collaborating with Canada's private sector to reach net zero, we are ensuring the ongoing competitiveness of our biggest employers and the well-being and the well-paying jobs they provide in communities across the country. Joining Canada's Net Zero Challenge means you are developing a credible and robust plan to achieve our collective goal of reaching net zero by 2050. Today, I'm pleased to announce that over 40 businesses across the country have joined the challenge, including most recently Microsoft Canada and 3M Canada. Some of Canada's biggest companies have already taken important steps towards the net zero path. 3M, a leading supplier of medical, automotive, and consumer goods, has switched its Canadian headquarters to 100% renewable electricity and is committing to doing the same globally by 2050. Siemens is working with Atlantic Utilities to test how the grid of the future can optimize the integration of renewable sources of energy, ensuring grid stability and manage decentralized distribution. Microsoft is working with Ontario Power Generation on co-developing an energy platform that matches a customer's power needs with local carbon-free energy sources on an hourly basis using artificial intelligence and the Internet of Things. These businesses know that the opportunities won't wait as the world moves towards a cleaner energy and a net zero economy. Alors aujourd'hui, j'ai le plaisir d'annoncer que plus de 40 entreprises à travers le Canada se sont joints au défi, dont plus récemment Aecon, Microsoft Canada et 3M Canada. Ces entreprises comprennent la nécessité et la valeur d'investir dans un avenir carboneutre. Le défi de la carboneutralité offre aux entreprises la possibilité d'être reconnues pour avoir suivi de bonnes pratiques industrielles qui contribuent à un avenir propre. J'encourage les autres entreprises canadiennes à s'engager. And as Minister Fortier announced, through the new GHG standards for major contracts and those on concrete, the Government of Canada is continuing to lead by example, greening its operations and delivering low-carbon, climate-resilient, and clean growth economy. We believe planning for net zero should be a default business practice in Canada, and that's why we are incenting companies doing business with the federal government to have their net zero plan. Canada is well positioned to lead in the shift to a clean economy. We have the people, the skills, the resources, and innovative spirit to be a global leader in the net zero 21st century economy. Taking climate action to reduce emission is no longer just about clear environmental benefits. It is a critical economic opportunity that will maintain and create jobs for Canadians and make our economy more resilient and more competitive. And we can't be left behind. Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ministers. Nous avons maintenant quelques minutes pour une courte conférence de presse pour les médias qui sont présents. We have a few minutes now for a very short press conference for members of the media who are present. Simply raise your hand. We do have a microphone to speak in. What microphone's just coming up. Please introduce your name and your outlet. Votre nom et votre média.
Thank you. It's Sean McCarthy. I'm writing for Corporate Knights magazine. Minister Fortier, you talked about companies supposed to have a target setting, scientific targets. We know there's a difference between having a target and having a plan to reach the target. So will these companies be required to not only have targets but to have plans to reach them, and will those be verified somehow by government?
Well, thank you for your question. Thank you for being here today. And again, the big message we have today is that we're championing sustainable procurement. We're bringing forward directives to make sure that businesses disclose of their carbon emissions and how they will do so. Therefore, we are making sure that businesses are part of this solution of really reducing our climate footprint. And that's why this directive will be in place. And as you know, for projects that are 25 million and over, they will have to disclose in the two ways that I shared earlier. Therefore, I'm really looking forward to maybe talking to you offline to give you the specifics of targets and answer your question. But at the top of this right now is the importance of this directive for the procurement for businesses.
Next, prochain.
Hi there.
Oh, I mean, the other thing, Sean, just to complement what Minister Fortier said, obviously through the Net Zero Challenge, companies it's on a voluntary basis, but they're encouraged to take on the challenge, to present targets, and obviously how they're going to go about meeting those targets. This will be part. So these are two things that are working in conjunction with each other. What Minister Fortier announced in terms of green procurement, and what the Net Zero Challenge we launched at Environment and Climate Change Canada. So these are two initiatives that will complement each other.
Adam Radwanski from the Globe and Mail. For Minister Fortier, I think there's the hi. Sorry, I'm hiding back here. You mentioned the 10% reduction in embedded carbon for cement or concrete. What's the plan for other sectors on that? I mean, steel, aluminum. There's other ones which are they more difficult for some reason to do now, or was concrete the easiest for some reason?
So first, thank you for your question, and also I'm glad to see you here today. As you know, our government is working on greening government strategy for some while now. We're starting with concrete, but we're also looking at how we will include aluminum, steel, even wood as being those materials that will help us into reducing our emissions. Therefore, we start with concrete and more to come with the other materials. And we're already working on different initiatives, and maybe we get a chance to talk more about those actions, but they will be part of the strategy.
Other questions? D'autres questions? With that, I thank you all for coming today to this announcement. Merci d'avoir venu ici parmi nous pour cette annonce.